The Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment System is a new assessment designed to more validly measure what students with significant cognitive disabilities know and can do. This presentation will provide information about supporting students with significant cognitive disabilities as they participate in discussions. This training, Supporting Participation in Discussions, is one of a series that supports teachers of students with significant cognitive disabilities in their efforts to teach and assess more effectively. Sponsored by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, this training is part of the professional development efforts of the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment Consortium. In this module, you will learn about strategies to support the participation of students with significant cognitive disabilities in discussions with peers and adults. The Dynamic Learning Maps English Language Arts Claim 3 is that students can communicate for a range of purposes and audiences. This claim encompasses the ability to participate in discussions. While this is not directly assessed in the DLM alternate assessment, building skills in collaboration, communication, and the ability to participate in discussions will help students develop the kind of language and thinking skills that are assessed directly in the DLM alternate assessment. Participating in discussions can be a difficult task for students with significant cognitive disabilities. There are several reasons for this, including the fact that all students with significant cognitive disabilities have language impairments. That is part of the definition of a significant cognitive disability. As such, language understanding and use is always a consideration. About 1/3 of students with significant cognitive disabilities also have complex communication needs that prevent them from using speech to communicate. Also, some students with significant cognitive disabilities have learned to be passive during discussions, perhaps thinking that either don't know or have any information to contribute. Finally, some students with significant cognitive disabilities have learned that their efforts are not always understood, so they stop trying to contribute. Our goals are to provide ways for students with significant cognitive disabilities to become involved in discussions, to point out the value of their contributions, and to attempt to get them to expand on these contributions so that they can expand upon their own thinking and understanding about the various topics they encounter in school. The first and most important consideration when supporting participation in discussions is that every student must have a means of expressive communication. If students cannot use speech to meet their communication needs, it is logical to provide signs, symbols, or other alternative communication methods. All of these are known as augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC. Pay particular attention to the first A in AAC. It stands for augmentative and highlights the fact that many students need us to augment the communication skills they have. If a student has very limited verbal communication or has speech that is difficult to understand, providing AAC to that student will enhance participation and allow language to continue to develop while continuing to work to improve speech. Use of AAC will not inhibit the development of speech. To the contrary, if the student has the ability to develop and improve upon speech, AAC is known to improve those speech outcomes. When providing students with AAC systems, it is critical that the vocabulary is used often and is useful across settings. This is called a core vocabulary approach. It allows students to become familiar with the words and symbols, how to use them when communicating, and where they are located within the communication system. It also allows them to learn to use words in the flexible ways that they were intended. This core approach replaces the creation of AAC supports that are activity-specific. While an activity-specific set of vocabulary may increase immediate success in the activity, it does not support the development of generalized language and communication skills. There is a separate instructional module that describes core vocabulary as an approach to AAC. It is called DLM Core Vocabulary and Communication. This core vocabulary approach emphasizes the regular use of a set of vocabulary that is meaningful across settings. It supports students in learning the system through constant modeling and use of the AAC system, combined with repeating and expanding upon every effort the student makes to use the system. As this module on participation in discussions continues, it includes specific examples of supporting students who are using the DLM core vocabulary as part of their AAC system. Whether or not students have difficulty producing speech, students with significant cognitive disabilities often have difficulty finding the language or the confidence to participate in discussions. However, there are several strategies that can support students with significant cognitive disabilities as they work to participate in discussions. The first strategy we will review is creating a classroom climate that encourages thinking and contributing. This is a direct contrast to a classroom that focuses on correct answers. Certainly, correct responses are important for assessment, but when teaching, we want to help our students learn how to think and problem solve. Being encouraged to share information you think you know, or information you think is accurate, provides the freedom for students to take a chance in class discussions and leads to more conversation as you work as a group to figure out information. The second strategy is to use probing questions to encourage thinking and expansion of ideas. Probing questions are designed to elicit information about what a student thinks or knows about the topic at hand, without eliciting specific information. For example, if your class is studying about the ocean, you might start the discussion by asking students to tell you what they think they know about the ocean. This is obviously a very open-ended request. If students have trouble getting started, you might then ask if any of them have ever been to or seen a picture of an ocean. If the answer is yes, then you would continue to probe, asking questions such as how it looked, how it felt, what things were in or near the ocean. This will help students realize that they actually do know something about the topic you are discussing. The third strategy involves expanding student responses. You can do this by following student responses with phrases such as, "Tell me more," "And then what?" or "What else do you think?" You can also encourage students to expand one another's responses by adding more to what others say. Returning to the ocean example, if you ask the probing question, "What do you think you know about the ocean?" and a student responds, "Water," you can expand that response by asking the student, "What about the water?" or "What color is the water?" You might also ask another student to "Tell me more about the water." The fourth strategy for supporting participation in discussions is to offer response options. Sometimes, especially when you are working on a new type of lesson or activity, it is just too difficult for students to generate a response. You can get the discussion started by offering a few plausible response options, asking each student to select the one they think is best, and then discussing what is correct about each student's selection. You can also get students to comment on another student's response by asking them if they agree, disagree, or are unsure. The fifth and final strategy we will review in this module is to presume competence and respond naturally. Whether the student is a beginning communicator who regularly communicates things or responds in ways that are unexpected, or uses speech in complete sentences but offers information that seems to be off topic or is otherwise surprising, always presume that the student is competent and at least trying to respond. Rather than questioning whether your student meant to communicate a particular message, try to make meaning from the communication attempt and respond in a natural way that teaches them how people interpret the message they communicated. Now, let's think about some specific instructional activities and the strategies you can use to support participation in discussion during these instructional activities. This is an example of an Anchor Read Apply text comprehension lesson in which the students are going to read a text about Martin Luther King and the March on Washington. This instructional framework is described in detail in the professional development module called Teaching Text Comprehension, Anchor, Read, Apply. Here, it is included to emphasize how to encourage participation in discussion. In the current lesson, the teacher has decided that the purpose for reading the text about Martin Luther King and the March on Washington is to identify the best summary of the book. To encourage discussion from the start and anchor the reading purpose by getting students to think about summaries, the teacher asks students to recall a recent event and identify a good summary of it. For example, the teacher may lead the class in a discussion about a game they played during physical education. The teacher might start by asking students to recall everything they can about the game. The students recall that the game involves teams, hula hoops, scooters, mats, cones, and ropes. The teacher encourages students to participate by providing options and asking students to select which were and were not involved in the game. After ensuring that all the students are thinking about the game, the teacher offers 3 summary options and asks students to decide which best tells about the whole game. Here, the 3 options are: we worked in teams to get everyone through all of the obstacles. The first team to get everyone to finish was the winner. We all had to get inside the hula hoops. Then we rode the scooters and climbed the mats. It was fun. And everyone went over, under, and around. The first team to finish was the winner. Each of these choices includes true information, but the first option is the best true summary. The teacher would guide students to first choose the summary they thought was best. Then the teacher would ask why. Finally, the teacher would teach why the first option was best. This entire anchor activity process would last no more than 5 or 6 minutes. After completing the anchor activity, the teacher then clearly states the purpose for reading the text about Martin Luther King. To maximize the participation of all students, the teacher provides 3 choices of summaries. Those students who could produce their own summaries still have to select from the 3 options the one that is the best match for their own summary. Offering response options also allows students who do not have the language or communication skills to generate a summary to participate actively in the discussion. The response options for the text about Martin Luther King might include: Martin Luther King dreamed of equal rights for all people. His work helped make changes in our country. Martin Luther King grew up in the South. He gave an important speech. Or, Martin Luther King wanted equal rights for all people. He said, "I have a dream." The teacher would read the 3 summaries and ask the students to identify the one that best fits the text. After students identify a summary, the teacher would ask them to tell why they chose the response. For students who do not have the communication skills to respond to the question why, the teacher could ask them to look back in the book to find the pages in the book that made them think that was a good choice. Although the best summary for this book is option A, Martin Luther King dreamed of equal rights for all people. His work helped make changes in our country. You can certainly find information in the book that supports the other 2 responses. Making sure that all of the response options are reasonable responses means that you can always have a meaningful, text-based conversation regardless of which choices the students make. You can always teach them why option A is the best option because it includes the most important information from the entire story. The result is that students are able to learn about and discuss what makes a good summary without having to independently generate one. Providing multiple feasible response options is critical. You aren't asking a single right-wrong question. You are encouraging participation in the discussion of the text, so you want to ensure that all responses are worthy of discussion. Vocabulary instruction is another context when teachers can use strategies to support participation in discussion. Throughout their school experience, students learn new vocabulary to better understand texts, to expand their communication skills, and to understand concepts and information involved in academic subjects. Strategies that teachers might employ to encourage participation in discussion during vocabulary instruction include using probing questions and expanding upon student responses. Here is an example of how one teacher supported participation in discussion during a lesson focused on vocabulary learning and science. Students were about to embark on a several-week unit about plants. The teacher wanted to assess her students' knowledge of the vocabulary they would be learning, so she displayed the words and read them to the students. Roots, photosynthesis, pollen, stem, germinate. Then, the teacher asked the first probing question. Who thinks they know something about these words? One student raises his hand and says, like a picture. The teacher then asks, show me which word. The student pointed to photosynthesis. The teacher read the word aloud and, obviously making the connection between photo and picture, asked the student, photosynthesis. What about that word makes you think it is like a picture? The student says, photo. Photo is a picture like you take on your phone. The teacher invites other students to add more. Who can say more about the word photosynthesis? Another student says, cheese. And before they go too far off track, the teacher says, I see the connection. You hear the word photo in the beginning of photosynthesis, so it makes you think it's like a picture. I'm going to write that down, and we'll work together to learn if photosynthesis is really like a picture. Then the teacher says, let me read these other words. Who thinks they know something about these other words? The same student uses the same strategy to offer that germinate is like dirty because germs are dirty. The teacher then uses more direct probing questions. Who has heard of a root before? She asks all students to respond yes or no, I've heard of roots. Then she asked a few students who replied yes if they knew where you would find roots. One student answered under the ground. The teacher replied yes, under the ground. How do they get under the ground? Another student responds, the plants. And so the conversation goes as the teacher uses probing questions to elicit responses and then expand on the responses students provide, thereby encouraging all students to participate in the discussion even when they are unsure of their response. Pause for Activity 1. Shared reading is an excellent activity in which you can support participation in discussion by students with a broad range of communication skills. In this video, you will see the teacher employ a range of strategies to encourage all of the students to participate in the discussion. Some of the boys have no trouble expressing their ideas and participating, but the teacher knows that Colin finds it particularly challenging to participate in group discussions. She uses a series of probing questions and expands on the ideas of other students to encourage Colin to participate. As you watch, note that the teacher presumes all of the students are competent and responds naturally to the comments they make, while encouraging all of the students to participate.
What kinds of things happen there?
Running.
Hockey, running.
Basketball.
What sports do you play, Colin? I remember. Basketball. You snowboard.
That's what I just said.
They have snowboarding at the Olympics.
That's what I just said.
Awesome, yeah. Cool. More people can have the same
Yeah,
idea.
but you know what? They shoot like this. I don't wonder why they shoot like that.
For free throwing, it's just, I guess, a good form. I don't know anything about basketball. But they have snowboarding. Colin's a snowboarder. They have snowboarding at the Olympics, too.
And do you know that's Olympic flame?
Yes! So they have this thing. Do you want to tell us about it?
Well, the Olympic flame, like, presents your heart. Like, it goes into your heart.
Okay. And
So you never forget about it.
Yeah. And it never stops. The fire never goes out. And different athletes or people who do sports carry the Olympic flame like across the country where the Olympics are happening. Colin, you do this too. Oh no. Yes. He ran track and field.
Cool.
And Colin runs track and field too. Yeah. Colin's good at a lot of sports. Yes, so. Yeah. Anyway, it says Jim Thorpe, he was great at every game So he played,
Baseball.
okay, and he ran. We see, and it looks like he's doing some. I mean, he's still running, but
Is he maybe doing a long jump or something?
yeah, maybe he's doing some other kind of activity other than running something.
He's like you guys. He does a lot of different sports.
Yeah.
Like you do a bunch. You do a bunch. You all do a bunch of sports.
Yeah.
Do you know I used to do Olympics?
Really? Oh,
I done swimming. I got in first place.
cool. That's awesome. So there
I
used
was
to be
wondering-
like a Hall of Fame, a local Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
and
but
you
I was
get
wondering.
first place.
I was wondering where you got that shirt from.
Oh, this shirt?
No, other
You
shirt.
get another Olympic shirt? That's cool. Wow, that's a good connection. And you remember that shirt and connected it to now. That's smart. Okay, so then Jim Thorpe is another guy who was in the Olympics.
And,
You want to say something else?
no, Jim Page. Yeah. Does that guy look like Jim Thorpe too?
I thought so too. I thought that was the same guy, but I think it's a different guy. Let's find out. Oh no, it is him. He's in
I knew it.
he's in the Football Hall of Fame.
Note that the teacher is working to follow the lead of the boys and is doing her best to invite them all to participate in the discussion. The boys still need to work on directing their comments and discussion toward one another, but as the teacher gets them all involved, she'll certainly be working on that. It is possible to support the participation of students with more complex communication needs in groups like this. Some students may be able to use their DLM core vocabulary supports, such as the display you see here. The teacher could model the use of the board, asking probing questions such as, "You do it?" or "What you do?" while pointing to 3 symbols on the display. An experienced student might reply, "I do it," and a less experienced student may only point to "do." In either case, the teacher would repeat their response and expand on it by adding just a little more. Other students may have even more limited expressive communication skills and require other types of support to encourage their participation in the discussion. In this case, the teacher provided the student with a photograph of himself engaged in a sport. When the student reached out to touch the picture, the teacher presumed his interest and built on his response by linking it back to the book. Whatever the level of communication skills the student demonstrates, shared reading provides a context that makes it possible to support participation in discussions. Pause for activity 2. These 5 strategies are just examples of the many ways that teachers can support and encourage all students in their effort to participate in discussions. They all hinge on creating a classroom climate that encourages thinking and contributing. This means we have to step back from questions with single correct answers and use probing questions that leave room for a variety of responses. When students do respond, we need to expand upon what they say rather than always directing the discussion to match our expectations. When students can't generate responses, we can support them by offering plausible response options. Above all else, we must presume competence and respond naturally. Getting some students to respond at all is often a challenge, but you can move beyond response to participation if you purposely integrate these strategies across the day. For more information about English language arts instruction for students with significant cognitive disabilities and the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment System, please go to dynamiclearningmaps.org. Thank you for your participation.